My name is Jared Edgel. I'm a professional engineer. I work at Summit Engineering Group in Heber City, Utah. I do mostly residential structural work, some architectural work, some survey work, and that sort of thing. I take people's dreams and I help make them a reality. Right? So
Cool.
somebody wants a home to look like this and to do this for them. Somebody wants their home to be a certain way. And they want it to be fully functional and not fall down and survive. Right?
Imagine that.
I help make that happen. I'm one piece of that process. There's a whole bunch of people that work on that along the way, right? The contractor, sometimes there's an architect, there's the planning and building departments that you got to go through. There's a slew of people that are there. There's the electricians, the painters, the plumbers, right? Like the list goes on and on and on. The finishers, the window guy, all of that, right? There's a bunch of people but I get to be kind of the overall boss of it, right? They need me to sign off. They need my stamp. They need my signature.
You make the magic happen.
Yes. I run the calculations that nobody looks at, but I run them. Most of the time, what I'm working on is people who have a home. They want to remodel it. They want to add on to it. They want to change it. Sometimes they want to just add a deck on, a 20-foot by 20-foot deck or something like that, 20-foot by 50-foot. Or they want to remove a portion of the house wall and build a whole new addition onto it with a roof, main floor, and basement, like that sort of thing. I've designed whole homes where, the whole thing hasn't been built, and very little of that. But that's mostly because we're a small firm. It's just me that does the structural work. When I was getting trained, it was Mike Johnston who was working with me. I was working under him. And together, we were able to get more done. But now he's moved on to mostly survey work, which is like, people's lots, people who buy a property, and they want to make sure what they purchased is what is theirs, that nobody's, that basically that's what it is. And sometimes it's for construction. They'll like stake things out for construction. But anyway, so that's mostly what I do is home remodels, additions, retrofits. Sometimes people come to me, a part of their home is failing, and they're like, hey, what do we do to fix it? Sometimes they're buying a home and the original house report showed some issues, and they said, hey, you should bring in a professional engineer get a professional structural engineer to get eyeballs on it. And I come in and give them ideas on what's happening and whatnot. I'm old school. I never had to draw by hand. I've never had to draw by hand. And that's not completely true. I have drawn things by hand, details, but never a full set of plans. So yeah, CAD is where the nitty gritty gets done, but a lot gets done in Excel. All of my structural calculation sheets are not all of them. Most of them are in Excel. A couple of them are in programs. Some of those programs are web-based. Some of those are program-based on my computer. A lot of emails and a lot of phone calls. So those are both pieces of technology that I use day in and day out.
And a big printer.
So that's the funny thing. Yes, I do have a big printer. I don't send prints out. Most of the time, everything I send out is email. Most of the governing bodies that these plans are going to and these calculations are going to require them to be uploaded digitally. So if
like
the
a
owner
PDF?
wants, yes, PDFs. So if the owner wants a set of plans for their own personal, or the builder wants it on site, says sometimes it's easier to work with that, rather than just something on your iPad or whatever it is you're working out of. Yeah, but that's rare actually. So I do print for myself because I'm alone. Yeah, so I try to do everything digitally, and then when I'm done doing everything digitally, I print it and review it myself in the physical.
Gotcha.
It just helps switch my gears so that I can see it in a new light. Anyway, so I do print everything that I do, so it is nice to have a printer. You are correct, but that's the only time. And oftentimes after I'm done, so once I get those plans, I mark them up. We call it redlining, right? So you're just literally marking it up, just like when you were in middle school, high school, with a report, and the teacher wrote on it with red ink, right? You redline it. And oftentimes, by the time I'm done reviewing them, all of those plans are redlined up so bad they just go in the garbage. So it was literally just the review process.
They're just to take notes on and figure out, what else you need to do and get a better idea of kind of where you're at.
Check my spelling on things, check my wording on things, making sure making sure I spelled the owner's name correctly, that sort of thing.
That's probably important.
Yeah, it's important.
Especially,
I've chosen to work where I work because I literally have a new project every week.
So you get that variety.
What's fun. Yes, for me. Yes.
If you work, I would imagine if you work at a larger firm, you're going to be more pigeonholed. And you do this one part, and you're that guy who does it.
And that's it.
Now,
exactly.
These types of projects or these types of plans, and you're the go-to guy for that.
It's worse than that. It's only this part of the process of those types of plans.
Gotcha.
So I get to talk to the owner when they first call in, and I talk to them. I set up a site visit. I get to meet them at their house. I get to walk through it with them, take photos, take measurements. Then I get to come back to the office. I get to draw that up. I get to write up the contract. I get to, I do everything start to finish, the whole entire process, right? So that provides a lot of variety in it of itself. So you do have to be good at math. You have to get a bachelor's degree. You have to pass 2 tests, and you have to work 4 years in the field to get your PE license, right? That's what it takes to get your professional engineer license. So if you're smart and good at math, good at physics, you can do it. Every single one of your students needs to do an internship.
Right.
I don't understand why that's not mandatory at this point in time. You need to spend time in the spaces where your future work is done, so you can see what it's like. You get to feel what it's like. You get to see these people in action. Granted, you're not going to be able to do the work. You're an intern. You're making photocopies. You're taking calls. Literally, that's what you're doing. You're doing menial tasks that are boring and unfulfilling. But
you get to experience.
To see it in real life.
Right.
And that was another thing that convinced me to switch out of mechanical engineering, because I was looking for internships. The only internships I could find were for structural work at civil engineering department. And so that was also a piece that was like, okay, Jared, wake up call. You got it. This is where you got to turn. So I did 2 summer internships at a company called How Croyolas. I don't think I've told you this. They worked on City Center on the Strip on Las Vegas. If you go to Google and just search City Center Vegas, you will see these are gorgeous buildings. This is like a several $100 million project. It was right between the Monte Carlo and the Bellagio. You pass it when you go on the I-15. It's these gorgeous glass steel structures. And I got to work 2 summer internships there working on these projects. It was the internship of a lifetime. So one of the buildings, you know how most buildings, they do this, they build up level to level?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, these had two buildings where one went like this at an angle, and then the other one right next to it went up like this at an angle, so they kind of crisscrossed each other. They're called Revere Towers. I get to work on those. It pays well. So right now my hourly rate is $140 an hour. Now I don't get to see all of that. If I started my own business, I would. Well, you have overhead, right? But
right.
But anyways, yeah. So that's the number. It could probably top out at like $200, $300 an hour, somewhere in there for these. So if you do get to work for one of these big firms and you work your way all the way to the top, like that guy like the principal that I was talking about, he was probably making $300 an hour. It's fun. It's fun. It makes decent money. But again, for every one of your students, number one, internship. You gotta get an internship for at least one summer. I would say 4 summers. You need 4 summers of internships under your belt where you're getting exposed to the field in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, you're going to commit your life to this, and
you might hate it.
Are you going to love it or are you going to hate it?
Right.
You don't know.
Yeah.